Hello and welcome to another edition of the Extreme Improv Podcast. I am your host, Dave Stansky, and today I am joined by Jens Vinund. How are you doing, Jens?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing quite good. It's been a bit of a hectic day so far. I've been rushing around and yeah. And then, like I did mention to you before we began this, I switched on my laptop and it said it needed to do updates, and it took 20 minutes to get it all going again. But we're here. We're here
and talking, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, super. So, Jens, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. You're an improviser. You're from Germany. Are you in Germany right now?
Yeah, I'm an improviser. I'm living in Mannheim, that's below to Frankfurt, and I'm an improviser for 11 years now. And beside this, I'm doing stand-up comedy a lot, and I just opened my own improv theater this year, like some weeks ago.
Oh wow! So you actually run a theater as well?
Yeah. So what we did was that's a little bit like jump starting to things, but yeah. Yep. So
we can circle back to any of these. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm when I say I own a theater, that is like you have another picture in mind maybe as it is. So what we got is just like a room with 50 seats and a small stage and a kitchen. So this is all that we got, but it's enough to do shows in it and to do workshops and it's quite nice enough to call it a theater. Yeah.
And what's the name of the theater?
It's just Impro-Theater Mannheim. It's just like we just claimed it whole for the city and just say that's what we're doing here. Yeah. So, but we got a lot of groups already here in Mannheim. But I don't actually know if there's like a real theater just for improv all over Germany. I know one in Berlin, which is the Comedy Cafe. And I think in Bremen they got like one theater, but here in this area we're the only ones who are doing a theater just for improv.
Wow. Okay. So, and was this your idea? How did this come about?
So it all started like this is like my whole improv journey. Is a little bit like...
we can start at the beginning if you prefer and work our way there. Let's okay. We'll come back to the theater. So
yeah.
You say you've been doing improv for 11 years. What first got you into it?
So I got I ended my studies of music business, which was super interesting, and then I ended up doing a desk job for a big show and concert company. They're doing stuff like Hairspray, the musical in Germany, and West Side Story for touring company. But I just did like web administration and a little bit of back end development and stuff. So I'm not an IT guy, but like it's more like content and a little bit of this stuff. So and it was a little bit more boring than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And it was like after having a really intense and interesting years of study, I was bored, and I also had a problem that I couldn't speak in public at all. So when we got like meetings or fixed dates or something like this, I had a hard time to speak up for myself. So I thought I have to do anything about like this, and so I ended up like doing the first like improv course, and it was like nice. And
okay, so just to pick in there, how did you go from I don't like speaking up at meetings to I'm going to put myself on stage? And then you also mentioned about doing stand-up. So it sounds like you took what might be the area you found most difficult and you made yourself do the hardest versions of them.
Yeah, it ended up like this. So I always was in love with comedy. So when I grew up as a 6-7-year-old, it was like first German comedians I listened to on cassette. And I learned it by heart. And when there was like family occasions, I just like repeated like the poems of them and like did short like stuff I did sketches with my best friends on video back then when we were like 13, 14. So I always was drawn to doing stuff, but I always also looked on TV and said, how do you end up there? I don't know how to end up there, but I always wanted to do something which has to do something with movies or with TV. But my life route didn't brought me in there. But what happened was with 18 and 19, I was doing a lot of musical stuff like hardcore and punk rock. And hardcore and punk rock brought me to this DIY ethic, like do it yourself, like start your own band and do your own shirts and like do your own concerts and make your own fanzine and blah, blah, blah. And I always I always did stuff for myself, you know, or from myself.
Yeah, certainly.
And this ethic is something that like is still running in my system, you know. So I'm not like drawn to hardcore and punk rock any longer, but like in the spirit of do it yourself and like make your own stuff. Don't wait for any opportunity, blah blah blah. This was all already like in the back end of my head. And then when I started like doing like improv, it was like, oh yeah, okay, this is fun. I'm good at this, you know. I'm better than the other people like who are doing this for the first time. It was more easy for me because I always was like writing funny stuff for blog posts or, and something else. So after the second improv workshop run, I did a poetry slam for my first time, and I was good, and I won the first thing on stage. Was like, okay, this could be fun. And so in the next year, I did like around about 50 poetry slams, and I put it up like I think 3 different shows in this year, like in different locations.
Just to have a look at that idea, because I'm interested in the idea of poets and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What happens when you go to a poetry slam?
So the idea is that you have written texts of any kind. Could be a poem, it could be a funny short story, it could be like a political statement about anything, but you have to write it by yourself. And then you get in competition with other people who wrote their stuff by yourself, and the audience chooses who they like the most. And the people who they like the most, they get a second chance to read something else. And then the audience is voting who has won the evening. And mostly it's just for fun. So there are no big prizes to win or something. It's just like a nice thing. But the scene is super big in Germany. So we got, I think, more than 400 poetry slams that are organized on a regular basis.
Wow.
And if you start to doing this, you get stage time a lot stage time. And what happened was, like in the first year when I did this, I killed down my stage fright. So like after 50 shows, it was like, okay, this is something that I'm get used to. I'm not bad at it. So, and I got more secure about my abilities, like in improv, you know. And I was like, okay, I want to do like solo stuff on stage, for example, which is something I still think is super frightening to do, like as an improviser, to do solo improv like on stage. But it was like, maybe it can help me in my other stuff that I want to do.
Yeah. So okay. So did you say you did do solo improv?
Yes, I did, and I still do some, I would say, short formy games as solo version when I do my stand-up comedy shows.
What kind of games do you do solo?
It's for example, I tell a fairy tale, and the people can call in the genre in which I should keep on telling the fairy tale, for example.
Yeah.
Or I get somebody out of the audience on stage, and the person does like the sound of everything that is coming up in the story. Or I let the people write down sentences of their private life or work life, and then I tell like a day of my life, and then I keep on putting their sentence into my day. So this is quite like short for me, really. Games, you know, but like played by my own with the audience. So, and this works out quite okay. Yeah.
Okay, and so would you say overall, across the 11 years you've been doing improv, where do you fall? Do you do more short form game style improv, or do you prefer long form improvised plays to perform or to
So
watch or whatever you want to answer?
I did like for the first 5 years. So what happened was after I did the trainings by like the company here in Mannheim, they asked me first to DJ with them, to be like a DJ musician when they show, and then we had some shows together, and I was like, oh, somehow in the system. And then they had a workshop by one of the Crumps, and Steve was there, and he said like, the guy behind the turntables, maybe he just like join us for warming up and playing scenes. Yeah. So, and I played scenes with them, and it worked out really good. And after like had this workshop together, they asked me if I wanted to rehearse with them, and then they asked if I want to be a part of the group, and then I was a part of this professional group already. And then like I did this for 1 or 2 years, and they do mostly short form, and when it's long form, it's narrative long form, plot driven, like improvised plays, for example. And then in 2014, everything changed when I went to Chicago and did the summer intensive in Chicago. So the summer intensive.
And who did you do that with?
I went there with one of my colleagues from this group, and she was she was just like celebrating her master degrees by being like in the US for the time. And for me, it was like, okay, I got time and I got like enough money to do it. And so we go there. And I didn't know what to expect to have it.
Sorry, which company was it? I mean,
it was IO Improv, formerly known as Improv Olympics. So in Chicago, there are like I didn't know that this is like the mecca for improv when I went.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been to Chicago?
I've not been to Chicago. I've been to the United States a few times, but Chicago is high up on my list. I've been to Alaska, which is a interesting random place to go, and Seattle, Florida, California. So I've been to a few places. Chicago's up there on the to-go-to list.
So I in the time between, I also was in New York, and I got some contacts to people who are living in Los Angeles right now. But like when I was in Chicago for the first time, it was the first time I saw like long form improv in the way it's now known. So when I thought about long form improv, I thought, it's more like a complete story you have to play all over the evening. But like now, when I teach improv, what I say with long form is more like, it's a difference if you find like the game in the scene or if you pronounce the game before, which I would say is like one of the different things. And I totally fall in love with the Herald. So this is there was like did blow my mind, and it still is like so precious to me. And the thing I like so much like about long form is like not the structure of the Herald, but more like the idea of like we as a group find a word, and then we find something that is true for us within the word, and then we show like things from this truth. So this is one thing that I'm really like trying to push on forward with the theater and with my team. Yeah. And the idea of like, if this is true, what else is true is super important to me. And a lot of like things that I didn't heard about when I went to Chicago first. Yeah. So I would say like I'm more on the long form team, but I still enjoy like good short form games also. So I have fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can you give an example of doing long form? Is there like one show, one story, one narrative you came up with where you were like, we've come up with like some genius thing which is completely improvised? What kind of thing would have that been? What was the pinnacle across the years of doing long form?
Oh, that's super interesting. I think like I got a duo show with my with Tabea, my theater partner, and this show has two parts. The first part is more like a loose montage of scenes. So we don't have like any structure at all. We just start like with honest conversations about anything, and then we just keep on playing. But the second part of the show is that we take a location, and then we play inside of this location, and we prep the location together on stage, which is like, it's not super original, but what we do, what is really a lot of fun, is that we are allowed that everybody can play every character. So it can be that we have for example, like a 3-person scene, a man and a husband, wife, and a kid. And it could be that on one point, like, because we both want to deal with the kid, that everybody can play the kid. And it could be that it's easier that I switch to be the wife, because like position-wise, it would be fun to be the wife. And then like she's the husband, and then like, so everybody can play every character. And this is like super fun for us, and mostly fun for the people who watch.
Okay, so how, if you've got a non improv audience there, is it through character voices? Do you always think, right, every time we're going to do a show like this, we need to make the characters very distinct? How can the audience tell when you've swapped characters?
So it's mostly they see, because like the position is clear, like because like when we play like a lot of characters within this location, this is not like a long form where we establish like 2 characters and you see them for like the whole show. It's more like a run of characters that you see, like different people who are in there, and it doesn't have to be that it's like a big narrative ending for them. It's more like, oh, how are they connected on some point, or how is this location important to them? But mostly it ends up like with often spooky stuff, or ghosts, or like people who are haunted by anything, because it's just fun to speak like, for example, people in pictures who are looking on the people who are inside of the room. It was the first time when we had like, oh yeah, it could be also fun that like we are just the people in the picture who are talking about like the stuff that is happening here, and it ended up like the people who were inside of the room were cursed to be inside of the picture at the end of the show. So like everybody who was in the room was doomed to be inside of the picture on the end. So we had like a picture hall with a lot of people inside of them, and they all were talking to each other. So that was fun. Yeah,
but that brings up. No, go ahead.
So and most we got like a lot of tools that are.
Oh, I don't know if I've just lost.
We don't audio. Have is a. You still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There was a little bit of a dead point, but we're back.
Okay. So what we don't got is a clear edit on stage. So we don't get anybody who's running across the stage, for example. So what we do is we just snap the fingers, which means like snapping fingers means like the scene is empty for us. And if we snap fingers, that means like everybody's can go out of the stage, or means okay, we are somewhere else. Without like pronouncing, without saying, this is the same person like 15 years later. We also do sometimes stuff like this, but mostly it's just like looking on at each other and then knowing, you're here and I want to do this, or I want to play with this character now. Yeah.
And I suppose that's something when you're working with people, you build up that relationship over time so that you can read each other.
Yeah.
So how do you approach this in like rehearsals? How do you approach like developing your format so that you like as a company, so that you know who you're working with, that this signal means this, or when we look at each other, we're going to read this from each other. How did you develop that?
That is super interesting because, like, when I went to Chicago, I came back with I would say, like 2 bags of new tools, which I wanted to introduce to everybody. Because, like, the idea of having, like, to don't be forced to find an ending in a third-person scene by getting to an end point. Yeah, often because we just were used to play, like, shows with, I would say, 4 people maximum. And the 2-person scenes were often driven by, okay, we got a start point and we got a problem, we hide the problem, and then we find a solution. And then the scene is over and everybody sees it. And now I got, like, the opportunity playing long form by, okay, I can play the scene as if it went on forever. And on one point, one of my teammates will say, now it's over, and there comes the edit, which gives, like, a lot of other opportunities to do stuff on the scene, to, like, play it in its heightened and not till it's, and now the scene is dead, and now it's over. Yeah. So, and when I came back, I was like, okay, I got, like, a lot of new words for you to learn. So this is an opening. Blah, 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 blah. And this is like an edit, blah, 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 blah. And this is a tag out, and this is a tag run, and this is something else that you can do, and this is something else that you can do. So, and this is also what is important for us right now when we give workshops or we teach people. It's like there is a lot of improv training all over Germany, and there's a lot of improv training even in this town. But what we want to teach to them is more like, okay, this is like the benefit that you have, like when you are together with a lot of people on stage. Like this is, I would say it's more co-op. Like the team idea is bigger. Like for me in long form improv than it's in like in smaller companies, for example. But also like the energy is something that we wanted to keep up high, like to play like shorter sets, for example. Yeah, like Germany is really traditional on, like, we got 2 sets of 45 minutes, and there's an intermission that you need for drinks and blah blah blah. So and when we get one show right now, which has like 3 parts, and every part is just like 25 minutes, and there is like a 10-minute or 15-minute intermission between this, and this shackles the people like in the audience totally, because what, like 3 parts of a show? How can it be? Yeah, but it's I think like improv.
Do you do an announcement to begin, like before the show, or do they think that because otherwise they may think it's an interval. Well, they might leave after the second one thinking it was a short show with an interval.
Yeah, so we try to explain not so much about like what's happening on stage, because I think this is the thing where short form gets like the repetition too much, and when it gets boring for you as a player because you got too much to explain every time for the people. So what we see now is a scene, and we got 3 people in the scene, and A speaks for B, and B speaks for C, and C speaks for A, and this is how they speak. And now we repeat, and you are explaining so much instead of just like doing it, So, and I think like with long form, I just we had just had one show which wasn't clear structure wise and from the content, and we got so much feedback about the show, and the people were just like 1 hour after the show still standing there, like talking to us about like what happened on stage and blah 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 blah. And it was like on one point, I was like, "This is enough feedback right now. I can't handle it." I'm not sure if I want to like make the show better or if I want to do it again at all, because like it's so much things that people thought about when they were sitting in the audience. It was like, I think I also like to be like more abstract on stuff, but when people expect comedy, they always expect that it's like easy and super clear to understand. So but they all had fun. So I was like,
it showed they cared if they were gonna still talk about it an hour later, trying to figure it all out. It was probably a talking point for their week. So. So
I can talk about this for a second, because it was super interesting. So the format was one I would say, a version of the stage version of the card games Werewolf.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of companies who are running like Werewolf show. And I did a workshop with Ben Verhoeven, and he's great. He's a great teacher. It was a great show. It was super fun. But for me, on one point, it was too theatrical, because as I said, I'm more like a comedy guy. And I was like, okay, this format is super clear and it's super theatrical and it's fun to play. But through the fact that it's in medieval times setting, and it's like, it got the structure of now we got like the voting of the werewolves who's going killed, and then we got a voting of the people from the town who's going killed, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of like intermission and breaks in between the play. I was like, okay, how could we use the idea of that and maybe get it in another genre? So just to have more fun with it. And I was like, maybe Alien would be like a great setting. Somebody like could be killed from inside and nobody know who is it. Or what's a fun setting for me was like the Hunger Games. Yeah, because somebody
absolutely.
Just
you could put lots of themes to this, and I'll just briefly mention for anyone listening who doesn't know the game Werewolf. It's sometimes known as Mafia, and there are a few other games. It's where there's a group of players, and one of them has been selected to be like a werewolf or a murderer, and none of the other players and the audience won't know who it is, and they have to like solve it. Where one at a time, a player will be killed off until they have apprehended who is secretly a werewolf. Is the same game we're talking about?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I got like a lot of fun about the Hunger Games idea, and I did like a stupid German pun which you can't really translate, but it's more in Germany. It's called Die Tribute von Panem. And like my hometown is Mannheim, which is also called Monnem. And so I thought about, let's call it Die Tribute of Monnem, and just like do this Hunger Games stuff there. And all that we do is like to let the audience maybe vote who is going to die. And we got like good people inside of the tributes, and we got bad tributes. And this shackled up the people because who is bad, who is good, I don't know. And then they some people didn't vote it at all because they told me after the show, I didn't want to vote who is going to die. I don't want to be a judge about life and death on a comedy show, which is like super political and interesting at the same time. And they didn't call anything out for us on this show. The only thing that they gave us to improvise were some tools from their, really stuff they had by them. Not like only words, but like we had an umbrella on stage, and we got like a comb, and we got like a condom, and we played like with the tools from the people as weapons we didn't want to use as weapons. So this was the only thing that they were interactive with us, were just like giving us stuff and then choosing who is going to die. Which is for me like a total another point of how to improvise with that, because it was totally interactive for the audience, but not on the point as they knew it. They didn't were asked like, and where is this location, and who is this person?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything of this. We even settled the names of the characters before without knowing who they going to be. It's just like to be easier, but okay, because we got 10 people on stage, and then maybe it's easier not to do like a stupid Dr. Dumbrov name and then just try to recall every of the stupid names, just like making real names and then finding out who is this character. But what I just want to say is we didn't explain it before. We just like had a system in the back, and they saw it, and then afterwards was like, okay, I didn't get what you were doing. We had fun. It was funny, but like a lot of people died, and I don't know why.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if you do, like I've heard a few times as well that there's been a version of Werewolf or Mafia as an improv show, but I've yet to actually watch one. What if the audience, especially if the audience are deciding who's going to die? What if they catch the werewolf like first go? What happens then?
So we got 3 bad people inside of the show. We got
okay.
They were
in a company of how many?
Yeah, we played it like not with our base company. That's also like something I can explain in a second. So, but we just collected different people, and I tried to make them clear the format. And everybody got an envelope, and inside the envelope there was like nobody knew who was good or bad. And they, even if they would have kicked out one of the bad guys, there were still two like of them, and they just like keep on killing the good people. So in the end, we had more like just like two bad people in the end, which also was like a little bit of crazy, but it was fun. So
yeah, no, it sounds it. Okay, Jens, I just want to ask. You mentioned back at the beginning of this that you say you do stand up as well. Let's get into that a little bit. So
yeah, sure.
How regular do you do stand up? What's the balance with how you do improv? And let's talk a little bit about the differences between them.
So I started doing stand up also not right when I started like doing improv, because like as I said, like after getting loose of my stage fright, I did poetry slam a lot, and I started hosting shows. And during hosting of the shows, I just found like more bits and more short stories. I wanted to talk to the audience, especially when I do like open stages or open mic stuff. Then I just like hosting and then just like doing one or two gags just for getting short laughter, and then getting the next artist on stage. And on one point, I was like, okay, like basically I know everything like about stand up, and I'm like I'm writing so much stuff like even for the slams. I just lose the paper right now, and I just try to make people laugh with the gags that I have in my hosting, which was fine on the first attempt, but it went out like, okay, that it's not so easy, because like the people in Germany, they are not laughing about like funny jokes. They're more like they wanna get to know the people on stage.
Yeah,
they want to be clear about like who is this guy or this girl. They want to be clear about the figure. That's one of the reasons why, for example, we got a lot of comedians here who are quite successful with just like playing a character, for example.
So like character comedy.
Yeah. And this is something that I didn't want to. I like to do it, but I just like to do it in improv. I don't want to do it like a stand up and going like on stage, like in dressed up, for example. So but I had fun with it. But it even was like I started all over again. Even like being good with improv on this point, because like I was doing it a lot. I was rehearsing, I think like 2 times a week, and then I had like 2 shows a week with improv, and at least 1 or 2 poetry slams or other shows that I hosted. So I had like 6 shows a week, and I'm still like on this level right now. So I'm working like every day on anything. So
okay, so in that sense, if we're in the midst of your journey, where do you see yourself, say, in 5 years' time? Where would you like to see yourself? Or like could be like the ultimate dream, or it could be like, where do you see this progressing?
So back then I already was on my own business. I already got like lost my desk job that I switched before, because I was putting up shows by myself. I produced shows by myself, and because I got like all the skills for doing the stuff, I do everything that you need to put up a show, which means I host a show, I book the venue, I write the advertisement text, I do the graphics for the flyers, I do the printing for the flyers, I'm going to distribution for the like advertisement, I do the social media. Just to give you an idea and not to brag about, because I think it's shitty.
No. I sympathize. I sympathize. I very much the same situation. So go ahead, you say.
And I do like for stand-up comedy, I do it for open mic stuff. I did it like for music also, for poetry slam, blah blah blah. And it was like so much that I just like how can I say it? I closed too many doors because I had to say no, I can't do it because like there is many other stuff to do. And when I came back from Chicago, I was like full with ideas you can do about improv and things to experience, blah blah blah. But with my group I was in, I couldn't do it because I now think they didn't want to do it because they were a little bit. I don't want to call them frightened, but they were more on the business side of improv. So they earned money a lot with team trainings and applied improv and stuff. And they were more interested in this stuff. And for me, it was more like, no, I'm super interested in hippy dippy shit. I just want to I just want to be with 8 people on stage for 45 minutes, not speaking a word and finding out what we are doing. This was more my journey. And then on one point I had to get out of this group. So I which was like a really hard. I was thinking about this decision over a year if I should leave the group or not. So because it was like, there are the professionals, I'm getting like money by it. What can I do? I'm not sure. I would be all by myself, blah, blah, blah. But then I left the group. And then, because I wanted to do more improv and I wanted to do more teaching and getting people more up on it. So I did a casting all by myself just for like improv groups here in the surrounding area, and more than 40 people were there. And I was like, okay, all I can offer you is the following. I can get you a rehearsal room and I will pay for it. I could teach you if you like, and I could coach you, and I will set up shows for you. But you have to play one format regularly because I want to get you better in this format that you are doing. As a group, not as a group, but as a team, like as a loose team. And this team is still like the basement of the theater I'm running right now. So in 5 years, to answer your question, I would be super happy if like this theater has several teams to play there like on 3 days a week. On the other 3 days a week, it would be perfect if there would be trainings and rehearsals and stuff. And I still want to be like inside of this, I don't want to like drop it. And the fine thing is like my stand-up comedy career, because we don't have so many good stand-up comedians in Germany, I would say. And I got a good agency also. I'm on the lucky position to earn money with stand-up by being on cruise ships. So I'm doing like 5 cruises a year to earn my money. And when I'm here, I can like host my shows and do this stuff. And and this is like the biggest pressure I can put off my chest. I don't have to earn money with improv at all. I just can do it like as like the thing I love the most and the thing I want to do the most. And the thing I think has the most opportunities because there are so many show formats, so many skills that are not taught here, so many things you don't see in Germany already. And I still want to push it further, And this is like the thing I want to still do. And in 5 years, hopefully, people will speak about like Impro-Theater Mannheim on the same hand like as the other big groups, and they will say like, yeah, sure. Like one guy said to me, which was like a nice quote, like everybody should use the word improv at least one time a day, and this should be like the aim for everybody who's doing this art form.
No, I agree. I'm gonna come back. So, cruise ships. So you do that. You said 4 or 5 times a year. How long are these cruises? What's that like?
Okay, so
how do you balance that if you've got a theatre you're running, but it's like I'm on a cruise ship?
Yeah. So
how do you balance that?
It's when we so the thing with the theater like also has a little bit of a ramp to it. My brother opened a restaurant like 2 years ago, and he said maybe like we can put up shows for your improv and stuff like in the back of the restaurant. So we bought everything that you need to put up small shows, like 40 chairs and lights and a small PA and stuff, and we put it up on there, and we put up shows in his restaurant, and they were running good, but working with my brother, is a little bit difficult because like he has total other audience coming to his restaurant because he's more into fine dining and like more like arty audience there. So it didn't like was a good combination of people.
Yeah, certainly
on this restaurant. So, but we got like the thing up on this place, and then I got the opportunity to get into a room here in Mannheim in which I just can put up the chairs, and it was super big. Like we would have had like space for I think 200 people in there. It was just too big. And then we were like for 1 year in this place. And after 1 year, because another, like a church was also using the same location, they were like needing the place also on Sundays. And I couldn't do like weekend workshops there any longer. And then at one point we had to deal with them about like the technical side of everything. And it was like just like annoying. It was like, no, this is something I don't want to do. I just need like a one small room in which I can like put up chairs and do workshops and maybe have a stage and do like everything like narrowed down so that one person can run it. You know, I don't want to have a place where I need 4 people, 2 for the bar and 1 for lights and sound and another one for like entrance and jackets and stuff. So it was like we just have to narrow it down. And then I just started to visit different locations with a landlord here, and then he showed me an old restaurant which is not so big, and I was like, okay, this is perfect because we just can, if it's not so expensive, and we can, if it's like closed for 2 weeks, it wouldn't be so bad, you know. So this is the backstory of the theater. And when I'm not there, like the people of this team that I casted, they are like everybody has a key right now. Everybody has the opportunity.
They can run it in your absence.
Yeah, right. So I'm not. And this is also one thing I want to empower people. You know, I don't want to be like I don't want to be a boss or like maybe a leading figure, you know, and maybe inspiring person or like teacher or however, but I don't want to be the boss of a company because like if it should earn money, then you had to make other decisions and then I wouldn't be able to go away. But for me, it was more like, okay, guys, we can do this, but if we do this and I don't want to have money from it, I need to do every like good paid job, which are the cruises, which means I'm not here like for 2 or 3 weeks. Can you handle this? And everybody said, yeah, we can. And I said, okay, good. And now like the only thing we're dealing right now with is the workshops are, I'm the only one who can teach Harold right now. Yeah. I would say within like of our group. So we need to do more like train the trainer stuff, and we need to get like more prepared for running workshops, which is like a little bit of interesting process, but it's also fun. So we got a lot of teachers coming in here, like teaching how to teach, blah 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 blah. So, but coming back to the cruise ship, so this is just
it's all fascinating stuff. What is it like when you're performing on a cruise ship? I've never done this, and I think it's an interesting idea because is it one show a day?
Yeah, no. So for the whole cruise ship system, like I'm cruising with AIDA Cruises, which is like a big cruising company here in Germany, and they only got German passengers, or mostly German passengers, and they got like a show ensemble on the ship, and the show ensemble can prepare up to 8 shows. Which means you just have shows for 8 evenings. When you're doing now like a 14-day cruise or a 21-day cruise, that means you have to fill up the empty slots with other shows. So what they do is they book a lot of guest artists, and you have to play, or in my case, I have to play 2 shows within 2 or 3 weeks. Because you're just responsible for mostly having like the people entertained, but also you are you are one option for the whole ensemble to have like a free evening to prepare another show or to rehearse or something like this. So my job is more like to be the most easy person to everybody can deal with, like the technician and stuff, because stand up is super easy for like speaking technical wise. Maybe
yes,
you got an in the ideal case, you just have
if you've got a microphone, then you're good.
Yeah. But like the reality on the cruise ship is that like there are a lot of elderly people, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, and this for example, I don't use curse words in my stand-up, but I'm also not like all ages material. So I do speaking, for example, I just worked one day as a DJ in a sex swinging club, for example, and I talk about this story on within the stand-up. And this is
that a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story.
Oh,
I don't know.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a fun evening. So, and I talk about like stuff like this also within the stand-up. But what is so the problem is more on the ships that it is fun to play there, but the bigger the ship is, the more audience you have, the more complicated it gets within the venue of the ship, because like it's not always a theater where people sit down and watch like one focused spot. It could also be like the one, the bigger ships, they have like a round stage and the people are sitting around you like in a circus. And they are sitting like on several levels of the floors. And it could be like that you just see like the people on the floor and you don't see like the people in the upper levels, for example. You don't have a connection to them, which makes it sometimes really hard for stand-up. So it's quite nice when you play like for an ABBA revival show, but when you want to talk about stuff and you want to talk with people, what is something you do as a stand-up, it gets sometimes a little bit hard. But the good thing is, like everything I do with improv mostly works there, because like this is something that people don't know so good, don't have seen so often, and it's for me it's also more fun to improvise on a ship than to do this the regular stand-up stuff. So it's a combination.
Certainly. Okay, so just sticking on this one last bit on this about the cruise ships. Yeah. Like, so you've done your show, and you don't perhaps have another show for like another day, another few days, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
What do you do on the cruise ship? What do you do all day? You're there, like they're not sending you out there with your family, so it's not you're not technically on the holiday.
So I could have like one person as company with me, which
that's good.
Try to get with me every now and then. But also, as I said, like I'm working here like every day. I'm doing like so much stuff here that right now I'm quite happy to have like every 3 or 4 weeks, like 2 weeks just for like doing creative stuff, I would say, more like to write a little bit or to do sports or so I'm not so interested as a tourist often in the places we go to.
Where do you go to?
So the next cruise is it's just like a hell of a trip. I'm flying to Tahiti in mid of December, and I'm flying back from Sydney on 31st December. So it's just a lot of flying, and I'm going to visit like New Zealand then for 2 days, and there's one more day in Australia and Bora Bora. This means like 5 days on land, and the rest is just like, as we say, sea days. So, and then I'm just like on the ship, and now I started like doing improv workshops on the ship, because like it's just something I can offer, and you get to know people much more better. Like it's quite easier. It's easier to get the people to know about like the improv workshops than to do it when you are artists on stage, because people are more like talking about you, like this is the guy, and like when you do like the workshops, people, oh yeah, you can talk with him. He's nice, so that's good.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, so just coming to like a couple of other things, just like outside of improv, I know we've been discussing like running the theatre and stand up as well. But what would you say you're passionate about, which is not improv related necessarily?
Okay. I'm super into darts.
Darts. Okay.
Yeah, I'm.
Do you
I don't know.
Play darts? Can you play darts on a cruise ship?
I can play darts on the cruise ship. This is one of the.
It's always an interesting thing to me. It's like if you're and like I know, like you throw a dart and it's quite fast, but doesn't like the movement of the ship like ever when you miss, you're like, well, we hit a wave. Does that not happen?
Because you never been to a cruise ship, you have no idea how it doesn't feel like you are on water at all. So it can be that it's like you feel like in a hotel, and like it depends when it's like a rough sea. Maybe you can get seasick, and then you maybe have to hold something. But it's like they are so big, you often don't even feel that you are moving at all. Yeah. So it doesn't hinder you to play darts. And there is often one public area with a dartboard, and this is mostly shitty. But I'm so lucky that I also can go to the crew area with the crew bar, and they have also mostly a dartboard, and then I can train there. And I do this this is really one thing I'm totally happy when I got time, because I can have like 2 or 3 hours a day to just throw darts, which is super super relaxing. Yeah. So this is one thing I'm super passionate about, and I also like big championships. I sometimes watch on TV, which is interesting because I didn't fall in love with sports at all when I was younger. So I'm not into football and stuff. It's just like it's the first thing I watch on TV. I was like, okay, I get emotional watching this. So this is interesting. And what I also am passionate about right now is I also like listen to a lot of podcasts, obviously, and
cool.
And because I got like some hard times in all this, not in the last years, but before, I always had to deal with like depression and stuff, and it's not a problem any longer, which is super nice.
That's great.
But I also try to, I don't know the right English term, but I would say like personal optimization could be like a good word for it. So I'm a lot of into awareness,
like mental health awareness,
awareness, for example, or even like I'm not dealing with yoga and stuff, but I right now I'm on a quite interesting journey of breathing, which is really, really. So everybody who's listening to this, if you finish the podcast later, just Google Wim Hof. He's a Dutch guy, and he's like the god of breathing. And what he's teaching is so amazing. I can totally recommend it to everybody. So
okay, just because could you spell his name, Wim Hof? How is that spelled? Just so
it's WIM and then HOFF.
Very easy.
Very easy. And
there was the chance that it could have been more tricky, but that's very simple.
And it's really, really interesting. And what's also going like with this stuff is like I'm really like open right now, and then I'm on a journey. It's like, look, who's like beside of improv, I didn't was so challenged by different stuff. Like when I started with improv, it was like, oh, okay, I got problems like looking people in the eye and like speaking up for myself and like talking like in public. And now, like 10 years later, I'm more like on emotional challenges. So it's more like, okay, like I have like not so easy times with my family, for example, or I just like after 10 years I ended my relationship last year, and it's just like opening a lot of like questions in me, and I'm just like on a journey of like self-awareness, a lot of self-love, which is super interesting to feel forgiveness or to accept like stuff with your body for the first time. I mean, like I'm 38 now, and I'm like my last year just felt like I'm a teenage guy, just like finding out that like he has opportunities in his life. And not speaking about midlife crisis. It's more like, so just like I did like a workshop which was called Radical Intimacy, and we did like a mixture of different exercises of yoga, tantra, like breathing, laughing, group hugging, all this stuff, and it's similar to what we're doing in improv. But it also like gave me a lot of other body experiences, and I think like improv is a lot about like what is your body doing and how could you deal with it, like on the first, how you can get along with your ideas more, or with what is your body telling you, your intuition and all this stuff. And I'm like on the same journey right now, but like with another how you say it, like with another aim on it. Like I want to get better with myself, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've had something like similar. I do like Pilates, and I do yoga. I do a version of yoga which is known as DDPY. And it's by you. Do you know it?
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, and it was interesting just because I injured my back. I've done it 3 times where I've had like herniated discs, and so I was sent to do Pilates, and I found like this yoga, and there's so much which is about dynamic resistance and the way you connect with your body, your posture, and it's amazing how it can really benefit your life, and it can be something you just do for a few minutes in a day, and it's something which I came to through injury, but it really informs me a lot about just like how, like, and it, because you find out other topics from it, like how you eat, how you sleep, and how important sleep is, and all of these things, and it can do so much when you look after your body, and it can do so much to then look after your mind and your mental health as well. So I find it a very interesting topic to discuss.
It is, and I have you. Do you know Don Miguel Ruiz? You ever heard of him?
I don't think so. No.
So he's a Mexican guy, and he wrote like several like books about like self-awareness. I I don't even know how to claim it right, but he got like several consulting books for your life, and they're really like hippie stuff also, because like he brings like Mexican tradition to it, like has a lot to do with your picture of the world and your ideas you have about like the world. And what I totally recommend also is like a book is called the 4 Agreements. Okay. And it's just like
I'm gonna write that down.
You make 4 agreements like with your with yourself, how to deal with stuff in the world, and they're quite easy. And this, like, the first agreement is be incapable with your words. The second one is don't make assumptions. The third one is always the third one. The fourth one is always do your best, and the third one is I'm getting a little bit shaky.
Don't worry. It's all good. Like, we can look up the 4 agreements.
Yeah, 4 agreements.
Yeah.
So don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Be good with your words, and don't take anything personal. And like the don't take anything personal stuff is something that I'm trying to do more in my life, and it makes me so happy.
That's like such an interesting idea, just for the fact that especially as performers, when you do improv, if you do stand up, you can so easily be hard on yourself, and if you then get feedback from someone else where perhaps they didn't like something you did quite as much, they didn't understand it, you can easily get caught up in your own thoughts of, oh my God, someone said this to me and that wasn't any good, and they've long since forgotten it, and you can really it can mess with you. So, it's not saying that you shouldn't take on board positive and constructive feedback from audiences or fellow performers or directors or teachers or whatever, but it's an interesting thing, just the idea that you can take things personally. And I can sometimes, I've been on stage and I've done improv, and something hasn't gone down well with a particular audience, and it can just be a momentary timing thing, And there was one thing recently where I did something, and afterwards I was discussing it with the other performers. I was like, well, that didn't work. And and in improv, inevitably, see, it's an interesting thing where people think, well, how much do you pre-plan? How much do you script? And it's like, none of it is improv. But just as through repetition of life, we learn that. You speak amazing English, by the way, but in the English language, I will say hello to greet someone, and that's just something you pick up because you do it over and over again. Yeah. And inevitably, when you do improv and you're doing a lot of shows, you might find that something comes up and it's like, well, this is the kind of response I'll give to it, and it may be something similar to what you've done before. Yeah. And I've done something recently, and it went down like a lead balloon. The audience didn't respond well to it. And it happens, and afterwards I was like, that didn't work, and the idea that I got from speaking to the guys in the show is like, yeah, that wasn't going to work, and I was like, well, I've done it like twice before and it did work, and I was like, I felt quite offended that I now had to defend this joke, that it now hadn't worked, but I know that another time it will work, but just because I'd discussed it, and the audience hadn't gone for it, and quite possibly that just led them to think, well, yeah, it didn't work, David. But I took it really personally in that moment, and it was silly. It didn't matter for anything.
Yeah, I think especially when you are when you're doing stand up, because like as I said, I don't lie on stage, and I make up stuff. I just talk about like my life and my truth and things that I'm honest about. And the more honest I get, the more it gets like vulnerable, because like if people laugh about like a thing that you just make up, doesn't matter at all. But if you are trying to get out with yourself and you be yourself as pure as you can, and the people don't like what you're doing, that is hard. Sometimes like people get up to it. But this is something that I really learned like in the last 5 or 10 years, and I'm super happy about it. And like I'm on a position right now. I'm never felt as healthy right now as I'm like now. Every year of my life is getting better, so that's which great. Is like is really good. And it's a little bit sad also for my ex-girlfriend, because like I wasn't happy like within the situation after 10 years, and was like, okay, I'm like I have to get out, and I'm super sorry about it. Like, but I think it's like for my better. So I can stay here and be better, Well,
do you know what? Like ultimately, and I don't know that context or whatever at all. Yeah. But there are situations where if something isn't working for you, ultimately it may not be working for the other person. Yeah. Because if you're not like happy in yourself, content in your life, then ultimately, people sometimes have to make those kind of changes. It happens.
Or you have to be like in a reality of another person, which maybe isn't your own reality, And right now, I never been so honest. Like if we would have recorded this like 1 year ago, I'm sure I would have like make 1 or 2 get out of the way lies, maybe even if there isn't a reason to do it, So, but right now I'm getting. I wouldn't say that I'm on a journey of radical honesty, because like radical would mean that I'm not empathic to anybody.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm on a journey of honesty, and honesty brings like more ease to my life. Like it's really, but you also get like more vulnerable, and then you have to have a mindset of don't take it personal, because like you have to be still on a point of self-forgiveness or self-empathy. You have to and like it's and also these are new themes for me as well. It's not like I'm an expert about it. You can ask anything, because like I'm not good at it. I'm just heard about it and I'm just training it. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea to be like more honest to other people about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and you have to be like more okay with how the things are in your life. So, and this is, I think, something that everybody has a positive aspect on it if you share it, So this is, and this is also something that I love improv for. That you sometimes you come to this honesty and this is my true me more easy as if you are doing it like with other art forms or with just like private conversations, like stuff that comes up on the stage. And like also this, it's no therapy. It can be therapeutic, but it's not therapy. But like as on my last cruise, I heard like just from people who had 4 hours of improv training, just beginning, just like normal, like zip zap zap and clapping and stuff. Like there was a woman, she lost her husband, and she said like, now I get an idea of that my life isn't over and that I still can challenge myself to do new stuff. There was a woman who was like had like a back injury and had to deal with like really strong drugs just for her pain, and she said like, yeah, since I'm doing this this math, I have to, my brain feels like clouded. But like in the last hours, I got the idea like, oh, okay, the brain is still working. Like, and there was
yeah.
And it was like just like, wow, this is intense feedback that you're just giving me like for a comedy workshop,
is so good. It's easy for people to think that like improv, it's just silly, it's just games and stuff like this. But like the more I've been doing it over the last few years, the more I see just how much it does help people in their lives. Like you say about with confidence and perhaps at a point not speaking up in meetings or looking people in the eye. And I have my own journey, which is a story for another day. But it's not dissimilar to what you've been saying. I think a lot of people who find improv just sees there is this element to it that when people discover improv, it does become like a little bit of a secret society, a little bit of a cult. Not that we're trying to keep it secret, but everyone who's clued in well, it can do all of this for you. That it is a thing that like, oh, people should do improv, and people that don't do improv don't quite get it, and it can like help people to see that life can go on, or like say about you can do stuff if you're in pain or whatever, and you can be creative and fulfilled and all this. All right, Jens, I'm not gonna keep you for too much longer because like I'm just looking at the time and we're going on. But one thing I always like to do, it's a new thing I'm introducing in this, which is now recording the second season of the podcast, is are you up for doing a little improv challenge?
Sure.
Okay, excellent. During the first season, just for any of the listeners, we did play more games, but just with the Skype calls, not all of them translated so well, just because of connection speeds and stuff. So for now, I've limited it just to one, and the conversations are super interesting. But what I'm going to challenge you with here, and I fully appreciate, I'm going to throw you right into the deep end. It's a game in Extreme Improv that we call an Extreme Monologue, and it's a game of endurance, the way we're going to play it today. And the way it works is I'm going to give you a subject to speak on.
Yeah.
And you have to perform a monologue for as long as you can, but you are not allowed to repeat any words whatsoever.
Oh!
You're also not allowed to hesitate, which we count as an extended pause, or saying things like or these natural vocal hesitations we do. If you break any of those rules, I will, and I spot them, I will call it. And then whatever your time is, that's the end of the monologue. But there's something we're doing across this season. We're putting it across the entire season like a leaderboard to see who actually has the longest stretch of time. So sometimes this is played to the rules known as just a minute, where you try to speak for 1 minute. But Jens, if you can speak for 3 minutes without repeating a word, then you will definitely win this season.
Okay, I'm super, like, now I'm a little bit nervous because English also, it sounds like quite confident. This is something like, okay, I'm shackled right now, but
okay, don't worry.
Yeah.
Just this week, and again for everyone listening, you'll get more context on this soon. But we've done like live recordings where it is a lot more games that we play, and so we've played this about 20 times this week with various performers, and that we had 4 performers in a row who did like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and it was interesting just because there was 3 performers out of 4 repeated the exact same word, and it was just the subject matter led them to say, I was going to get this, and to do this with it. And it's like, oh, we've repeated 2. And then the next person did it, and the next person did it. So anyway, Jens.
Yeah.
I am going to give you the subject of, we've been speaking about cruise ships. Let's say that your theme is life on the cruise ship. You're not, once again for clarity, you're not allowed to repeat any words whatsoever, and you're not allowed to hesitate, which is an extended pause or saying things like or If I notice you've broken either of those rules, we'll stop the clock, and that's the end of the monologue.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
As a captain, I speak to you people. Follow the rules of everyone. Emergency alarm on every floor for you, lady. Is no exit here. You damn it.
Repetition is you and
W.
W, yes. Oh wow. Okay, so Jens, I can tell you, you can be proud of this. Your time was 20.75 seconds by my stopwatch. And since we've started recording the new season and we've introduced this game, that is definitely at the head of the leaderboard. So
yes,
you're currently winning. But I tell you what, Jens, it will be something where we'll get off this call and you'll think about it, and you'll probably try it out and try it. And by all means, feel free to try it with others.
Yeah,
it's a game you can get better at. It's a very, very tricky game.
Yeah,
yeah.
I will train it in German first, and then coming back.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Later.
I was half tempted when you said, "Oh, my English." I was like, "Well, you could do it." I would not be able to tell if you'd repeated a German word. It's interesting. My ears are not trained to pick up the differences of all the words. Okay, so last couple of things I will ask you. Just a couple of quick fire questions.
Sure.
Okay, so where is the best place you have ever traveled to?
It's Chicago. It's quite easy. So the Chicago, I couldn't be happier just sitting in the brown line, with a grilled cheese sandwich. I just get on the Halstead stop from where next to the Annoyance Theater is, and then just heading to the I.O. and then expecting to see a improvised Shakespeare on this evening. This is my also mental happy place to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. What's the best piece of advice you could quickly give people who want to do improv?
Don't believe any of the rules that are given to you.
Interesting. Yeah. Rules are there to be broken. Okay. Yeah. See if you have an opinion on this, because okay, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Planet of the Apes.
The original?
I got 2 tattoos of it. I got a Dr. Zayas tattoo on my arm, and on the side of my chest it says "Human see, human do."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Marvel or DC, if you have an opinion on this?
Oh, that's difficult, because I normally would say Marvel, but Batman is my favorite comic at all.
Yep.
So
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the weirdest place you've ever done improv?
Oh, we had a business gig on a Christmas celebration in a church, and it was super weird because the sound was super hot, just a big echo, and nobody came up to us on the front. People are just sitting back on the table, and they wanted to have a blue material show. And it was this was a mixture of a lot of stupid stuff in one. But the church itself was also weird to do.
Okay, I think I know what the answer to this is going to be based on what we've said. But favorite sport?
Oh, darts. It's
there we go. It's got to be the darts. Yep. Okay, and if you could do improv with any person, living or dead, who would they be?
Oh, I would totally like to join Beer Shark Mice for one set. And if you don't know this team, Beer Shark Mice, just look them up. They're David Kirshner on it, who did the Whammy guy on Anchorman.
Okay, cool.
The janitor from Scrubs was in this team. It's just this is one of the teams I still wished I could see like live. And maybe they are doing a show. They did like a show like 2 years ago, like nearly original cast, but it was like, would totally love to join them. That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing I'll say is either, is there anything you would like to put a question back to me and ask me, or is there something that you wish we'd spoken about today and we haven't spoken about yet?
Yeah. So what I'm super interested is like, what is when you are on stage, like, and you know what to do, and the stage is empty, you know, like you do you still hesitate, and why?
Okay, so sorry, I'm not sure I've quite understood the question.
So like you're within a show, and you everybody who's playing improv know this thing, like there has been a scene and there should be another scene, and you're standing and you're not going out. So like this point of hesitation, and it just have to be like for a kind of seconds. So why
do you hesitate?
Yeah.
Sometimes for me, just because, again, and this is going to be a similar position, I think that you'll find when you run a company, when you run an improv troupe or a show, you'll sometimes find that you're thinking of 20 different things. Yeah. And I will often find that if I've let my mind drift, I will be thinking of the timing of the show. I will be checking in on what the audience is reacting like, because I've got to think of it from all of the business side of, are the audience going to want to come back? Who's engaging, who's disengaging? And I'll find that sometimes I slip into my director or producer side of things, and then I'll look at the stage and I will be like, I don't know what's going on. I can't either step into this game, step into the scene, or what's going on. And the tip I'd give to anyone, if they find themselves in a similar situation, because it's my go-to thing now, because it's happened a few times, is I'll just be honest and acknowledge it. So where you say about honesty is the best policy. Yeah. If I've tuned out, I will go onto stage or be in a scene, and I will just say, sorry, I wasn't listening, or I wasn't paying attention. And usually that will get a laugh. You'll probably get a funny look from the other performers.
I see myself laughing when somebody would do that. Like, I would do like a line, and somebody, sorry,
I wasn't listening to any of that. So, and it's not a malicious thing. And like, but that being said, like, I've had that happen in a show where I said that it was the truth. People laughed, and then it ended up becoming a running gag where even when people were listening, we then took to this one character that whenever he spoke, people would be like, sorry, I wasn't listening. And it was great, just in that one particular performance. So I suppose the other little nugget of benefit you can get from that is that sometimes things can happen and you can keep reincorporating them and reuse them there. So, on that note, Jens, this has been a pleasure to speak to you today.
Same here. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
No, you're very welcome. I'd love to have you back on the show in a later date, just so we can check in. We can play another round of the endurance game and see how you do once you've practiced it, and just see where you are on your journey with improv, stand up, the theatre. There's lots to dig into.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, like everybody out there, and if you want to come to Mannheim to play or something else, write me.
Yeah.
I'm open for everybody and everything. So
I was about to come on to where can people find out about you, your work? Is there a website for the theatre, Facebook page? Give us the plug.
So easy is Improtheater -mannheim.de, or just like my name written out and Google it, or just like even you find like impro comedy Jens Mannheim, and then you find me. So, and I also got like it's in German, but it's also easy to find. It's just like improvcomedy.de, and it's all links back to me.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so for everyone listening, this has been the Extreme Improv Podcast. Please take a moment to click subscribe, like us on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube pages, and all of this other good stuff. We have a Patreon, so if you want to support the show in that way, we'd really appreciate it, and we'll give you lots of cool content coming from there. And you can find out about all of our Extreme Improv live shows and all of our social media links and videos and everything from our website, which is www.extremeimprov.co.uk. So until next time, thank you very much, Jans. This has been a lot of fun. And
thank you very much.
Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. That's hello? Is that goodbye?
Yeah.
Oh, how'd you say goodbye?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh, no, that is goodbye. I just had how'd you say hello?
Hallo, grüß dich. Oder here in Mannheim, you would say Mahlzeit, which means like something about food. Mahlzeit.
Okay, just as I said it, I was like, yeah, I'll do the sign out in German. I was like, I think I'm saying hello as soon as I said it, but yeah, Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.